News Now is brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, Docomo Pacific, island-wide, worldwide, the choice is clear. From the Pacific News Center in Hagåtña, Guam, here's Clint Ridgell and Janella Carrera with Betsy Brown and Roselle Romanes. PNC Sports with Blake Watson. And weather with Joanna O. With your news now.
Off today, good evening, and thanks for tuning in to the Pacific News Center. I'm Clint Ridgell.
And I'm Janella Carrera. Thanks for tuning in. At the top of your news tonight, the media was turned away from a tour of Simon Sanchez High School today. Senator Mike Nicholas arranged the tour to draw a comparison between conditions at the Department of Corrections and the school. But the superintendent's office says he didn't ask to bring the media along. PNC's Betsy Brown reports.
A day after touring the Department of Corrections, Senator Mike Nicholas today took a look at Simon Sanchez High School, where he says the conditions aren't much different.
The restroom facilities definitely need work. They're about as bad as some of our prison restroom facilities. The locker room here at the gym is in a very, very sad state. And some of the conditions that our kids have with respect to where they eat, all of that needs to be modernized.
Senator Nicholas invited the media to tour the campus with him this morning, but the DOE main office said that the media could not come along, which he said was disappointing. DOE Superintendent John Fernandez today explained that he doesn't mind having the media on school campuses. He just doesn't want third parties sending the invitations.
Well, they have their position, but I really believe that, in a free society, our media is supposed to be able to go everywhere, especially in public facilities.
PNC did tour the campus last year, along with Senator Nicholas and other elected officials. And while Fernandez mentioned several improvements that have been made since then, Nicholas told us the bathrooms were worse than the last time he saw them.
And we've been talking about getting these kids a new school for years, and we haven't turned one shovel of dirt yet. And so what I wanted to do was make sure that the conversation was not getting lost, and that the mission of getting this school rebuilt wasn't getting forgotten, because the prison now is all of a sudden becoming a priority.
A $100 million request for proposal is expected to go out in the coming weeks to rehabilitate Simon Sanchez and other schools. But Nicholas says that RFP should have gone out a long time ago. Betsy Brown, PNC News.
It looks like Keith Jermaine Garrido will not be pleading guilty to the 2012 murder of Nancy Mofness. Garrido was expected to plead guilty today. The case was originally headed for trial, but Garrido had changed his mind several times. Garrido is accused of bludgeoning Nancy Mofness to death back in November of 2012 in a burglary gone wrong. Garrido's attorney, Stephen Hattori, announced that his client once again had a last-minute change of mind.
This morning I met with him again, and he indicated to me that he's willing to plead to all of the charges except for the first charge.
Then we're going to go to trial for the first charge?
If that's what the court desires.
No, that's not what I desire. I want to know from him. He's going to plead to murder, aggravated assault, burglary, and theft of a motor vehicle, but he doesn't want to plead guilty to the first charge of aggravated murder? Is that what I'm hearing? Commission of a felony, aggravated assault, is a third-degree felony.
Aggravated murder under Guam law carries a heavier punishment than murder. The aggravating factors would make it so that Garrido would be sentenced to life and will have no chance at parole. Without aggravated murder and only the murder charge, Garrido would still face a life sentence, but he would be eligible for parole after 15 years. Frustrated with Garrido's ever-changing demands, Judge Nita Sokola had this to say.
No, we're going to set this matter for trial.
Yes, sure.
I just want you to know, I don't play anymore, and this is it. And APD, you better just be ready, because we continued this many times at your request, and no more playing. I am not going to tolerate this on today, off, on, off, no more.
And with that, Judge Sokola set the next hearing for January 26th, at which point she will set the schedule for Garrido's murder trial. Meanwhile, the judge also heard Garrido's home invasion case today, in which he's accused of escaping from prison and assaulting a woman inside of her home. That case is expected to go to trial, and the date for that trial will be decided on February the 19th.
Opening statements begin today in the rape trial of former high school teacher Francis Ju Taitano. He's accused of raping an 11-year-old girl back in 2007.
The defendant tells her, "This is our dirty little secret. No one will know."
It was back in May of 2007 that the victim says she was raped by Francis Ju Taitano when she was barely 11 years old. But the crime wasn't reported until nearly 7 years later. During opening statements, prosecutor Jeremiah Luther says it all came full circle when the girl's father questioned her sexuality. That's when she felt compelled to finally disclose the heavy secret she had been holding on to for nearly 7 years. Luther says it happened on a night that the girl slept over at Taitano's house. He took her to the back patio of his home and began to molest her. Luther says he then took her to his bedroom and tried to have sex with his wife first, but she was asleep. So,
That avenue being closed to the defendant, he picks her up and lays her next to her. He then penetrates her with his penis and rapes her while she's laying on her side. She is going to tell you that at one point wakes up, rolls over, sees that she's crying, and tells her to go back to sleep. And that entire night, who's just been raped by lays between the defendant and.
but defense attorney Mark Condis argued that the victim is not to be trusted. In fact, he says Taitano's wife will dispute the statements the girl gave to police. Condis also questions why the girl waited for more than 6 years to tell anyone about what happened.
You're going to hear that varies in her statements as to what Mrs. Taitano, her name is Kathy, what she actually did. In one statement, she claims that she woke up, told her to go back to bed. In a second statement, she wakes up and watches the whole thing. They're also going to tell you that they saw no change in her behavior towards my client before or after she returned back from Kansas.
DOE Deputy Superintendent Rob Millay says Taitano is no longer employed with the department.
After the University of Guam unveiled its Good to Great plan, chaos broke out among stakeholders. PNC's Rosel Romanes spoke with UOG professor Dr. Mark Umbrello about how he felt when he found out that his degree program will be phased out.
There was chaos and commotion among students, graduates, and other stakeholders after the University of Guam announced that it will be phasing out 5 degree programs under its Good to Great plan. Professor Dr. Mark Umbrello says it was a reality check for the university's faculty.
It's unfortunate, but not everybody was able to win, in a sense. I mean, it is kind of. It was a real reality check for a lot of us, and it was something that we were told was going to happen, and we couldn't avoid it, and we couldn't run away from it.
Simply put, Umbrello says the UOG president and the administration realized that there was too much going on at the university, and the accreditor suggested that the university trim down.
And they put out a report which essentially ranked the various programs and made recommendations in terms of either, keeping those programs the way they are, providing more services for those programs, or with some simply phasing them out.
Umbrello clarifies that even though UOG will be phasing out East Asian Studies and Japanese Studies as degree programs, some courses will still be offered. In fact, he says UOG President Dr. Robert Underwood will be bringing back the East Asian History position.
It's unfortunate, but that's the way it went. However, having the East Asian History position back really allows the university to maintain that important connection with the region.
Umbrella advises UOG stakeholders to review the report, which contains the strengths and weaknesses of the various programs at the university and the recommendations made.
We worked really hard, and so long as those recommendations are going to be followed through, we're heading in the right direction.
A copy of the report can be found on our website at pacificnewscenter.com. Rosal Romanes, PNC News.
Some good news to report. Gas prices have dropped once again. The price of fuel went down by 15 cents from $3.83 to $3.67 a gallon. So far, only Mobil has reduced their prices, but Shell and 76 gas stations are expected to follow suit, as they usually do. The last price drop was on November 19th, when it went down by 15 cents as well.
All right, and now let's check in with Blake Watson, who I understand is here to
Talk about
John Jones finding
and
some
baking soda?
Baking soda. I got baking soda.
Baking soda.
Say, girl, want to celebrate 65 years of sisterhood? I'll tell you how coming up. And also, John Jones finds baking soda. Or maybe it was cocaine. Either way, it'll be all on sports. It's not too far away. See you then.